Rose Namajunas has caused quite the ruckus with some comments in an interview with LRT, a Lithuanian news outlet, stating that you better be, what is it again?
Bet.
Better dead, not red, better red. Oh, right. Better dead than red. Those were the words. Yes, and that was all a lead up. I'm sorry, I baited you with that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I was really trying to help.
and I appreciate that. But with that in mind, boys, how do we feel about said comments? Matt, let's start with you. Warranted, not warranted? I don't know. What do you think?
Excuse me. Warranted? No, but not by any means. Like this is, it's really unfortunate, man, to hear this come from Rose. Rose has been someone that a lot of people have been behind for quite some time. Like a lot of people have been in her corner with her, vocal, her speaking out on her, her mental struggles and things like that. And been in her corner for that and how she's dealt with that in a, a very public manner. So she's gotten a lot of support from a lot of people from that. And then for this to be a talking point, I don't know if she was just trying to, play to the home crowd with this, with this being a Lithuanian outlet and then this going this route in this interview. Like it seems like it's too on the nose. Like it's just strange that she would say this, saying that, that they were watching a movie, The Other Dream Team, about the Lithuanian basketball team that lost to the American Dream Team. But that also ties into the fact that, yeah, it does prove people that politics have always been a part of sports, because that was a big moment for, the Lithuanians and being able to form their own team for that documentary. Like that's a whole nother thing. If you haven't watched that documentary, go watch it. I encourage you to. But to now in 2021 say that you have to remind yourself of what you're fighting for based on that movie as if you were actually fighting for freedom in 2021 is just ridiculous, because you're not. You're fighting for a paycheck in the UFC. You're not fighting like you don't have any organization that I'm aware of that you're donating money to, any sort of cause to help people out in any form or fashion that I know of. Again, it's really, really ridiculous to lump Zhang Weili into the quote unquote red, like as a quote unquote red, like that's what she represents and that's who she is. Like you're just saying I'm fighting communism. That's what you're essentially stating as a blanket statement, and that's your motivating factor. Like it's I don't want to like use there's a lot of language I could use right here that I'm just going to refrain from using. I'm just going to say it's not very smart of Rose to go this route, because it doesn't make any sense in any form or fashion. So yeah, I mean, I'll just leave it at that for now. And then when we circle back to more stuff, I have more to say.
Well, I'm sure that Ant and I can use some language for you, Matt. We can do it for you, buddy. Um, you know, I generally don't like to get political. I do not have to or anything of the sort. But just in regards to this whole thing in these comments, it's just mainly frustrating for two things. I agree with everything Matt said, but like Weili, somebody who, I understand having your political issues and maybe not liking the more controversial sides of a country's, things, their controversies, right, that they may have and whatnot. But for somebody like Weili in particular, specifically, who is the representation, right, of the red, as Rose says, a person who has, at least that I've seen, openly supporting all the things that, Rose is hinting at, alluding at, it's just not, you can't lump somebody into that without having really any proof of them supporting it as well. Because just because you are from a place does not mean you support everything that is going on there. And if for you to 100% agree with everything from, wherever you are, is probably going to be a little bit more insane than anything. I don't think that's just how it works in general. And then kind of the other really big part about this, aside from, there's many little parts about it, but in this time, this current climate where there are so many ignorant, racist pieces of shit going around assaulting and attacking Asian people, Like, this is a big thing that is happening right now, and to essentially encourage that and, you know, act like you're separating, you know, the two people here like this, I just, that's not a very cool thing to do, I don't think, especially when, just aside from the Asian attacks and whatnot, the world has been, and America specifically, of course, has been so, you know, kind of at odds with each other in many, many ways that it's just not the right thing to do. And I know it boils down to they're fighting though. Yeah, but look at what Weili said like days before these Rose comments. You know, hopefully, well, we can be friends afterwards. She said, I don't have, I can't remember it, but she had a really good quote in there about, you know, coming to blows, friendship grows, or something like that. She's just always been an incredibly respectful person, nothing but respect for Rose, and just for, you know, her to kind of ignore that and go in this direction is very, very upsetting and, you know, a little bit shocking. So just not cool in general.
You know, the thing I feel is like, I feel like I've seen this movie before. Like I've seen this movie and it keeps playing. Like they keep making sequels to this movie. In this movie, I find myself really liking a particular fighter. Like I just like, oh, this fighter's great. Oh, this fighter's incredible. Oh man, I can't wait to see this person perform. And they seem like such a good human being. And then it's like, wow, you really should have just kept quiet there. The movie always ends with the fighter saying or doing something really stupid, and me just looking back and wondering, like, the hell is wrong with you? Like, I'm not going to doubt Rose's allegiance to her heritage. I'm, you know, absolutely nothing wrong with that, and identifying with the struggle of your people, because as a black man, y'all know how I get down. And, you know, myself and Matt, we've been on this channel, as we've been on other outlets, speaking what we feel. And follow my Twitter account if you don't believe me. This is just how I get down. But at the same time, let's be accurate here. I don't believe that China had a single thing to do with the Soviet occupation of Lithuania. Like, zero to do with it. Other than the fact that both countries share the same political system. That's kind of it, right? As far as I know. Please, in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding of things. Then on top of that, like, as Drake alluded to, like, Weili has not publicly aligned herself with anything of the sort. If anything, I would think you'd want to be more sympathetic to her in a situation like this, because this is likely someone who, under this sort of regime, would be forced to say certain things or punished for saying things that they are not supposed to be saying. So I don't think this is a fair thing to put in her lap, that she represents this, you know, the red evil regime or whatever that you're rebelling against. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Like, it almost feels like this is a desperate attempt to drum up some level of motivation. It feels like a really, like you're digging really, really deep now. And the thing is, we've seen fighters attach certain meanings to fights before, and in a lot of cases, rightfully so. Like, I'm definitely reminded of, I had a chance to interview Kamaru Usman before the Colby Covington fight, and definitely had a conversation with him about how he was well aware of the juxtaposition of his personality and background with the personality and background of Covington, and how that carried some extra weight to him. And that makes a lot of sense. Colby Covington is a person who very vocally aligned himself with things that Usman appeared to be completely opposed to. You know, and was literally a contradiction to his actual heritage and upbringing. Weili Zhang has done nothing of the sort. She's just born a Chinese woman. I don't think that's enough to really attach this sort of gravitas to her existence. You know, I find that to be, you know, rather silly. I mean, it's as silly as someone, like, say I was going to fight someone, and because a black guy had did them wrong at some point in time, then, oh, I'm doing this because black people, like that's that's essentially what this feels like. It just, I'm, I'm not going to say, I definitely see the racial implications of this as far as what's going on, the unwarranted attacks on Asian Americans. So I definitely see that. I don't think what she said is outright racist. It's just really stupid. And it takes just so many liberties with actual history and logic. That I don't know, man. I don't want to test this with a 10-foot pole. It makes literally no sense to me, and it's just really, really stupid. It's the only real conclusion I can come to at this point.
So, all right, this should be a fun one, because I'm gonna defend Rose here a little bit. I'm not going to absolve of what she said, but let me lay the groundwork for some of you guys. And I'm assuming you're not super involved in Sino-Lithuanian relations. So here's the thing. Back when Lithuania, for a little history for all you guys, back when Lithuania was one of the first countries to rebel against the Soviet Union and identify themselves as free as independent, the rest of the Soviet Union, specifically Russia and China, were very adamant at not recognizing Lithuania, put embargoes on them, raise prices, cause a whole bunch of issues in the 90s. Culminating in a big old thing called Bloody Sunday that got, I think, 14, 15 people killed, 900 injured, where essentially Soviet troops just stormed in and was like, nope, you're not going to be free. Forget that noise. And really a big part of a lot of what I think Rose is coming from is that Lithuania and China are not on good terms. There's a lot of bad blood there, especially Lithuania against communism in general from that occupation. The other dream team, as Matt mentioned, a bunch of that is, talks about the politics of how that team was a big representation of Lithuania becoming its own country and breaking free of the Soviet bloc. And the events that followed that documentary are really what's been a huge, still to this day, tension between the two nations. Take on top of that Lithuania has recognized the Uyghur genocide that is currently supposedly going on in China, which many other nations, including the US, have recognized as well. And China threatened Lithuania over that recognition. Those tensions right now are higher than they probably have been since around that time, I would imagine. It's real bad blood stuff. So I had to watch the comments a couple of times just to make sure that I could really break this down and be like, okay, let me see what she's trying to say here. She says twice she doesn't have anything against Weili personally, and it's about what she represents. I think she's misguided here. I think I am in agreement that it's not the smartest thing to say. I think it's kind of that blind patriotism saying, yeah, this represents communism. It's China. And Weili is a star in a sense in China, especially with, trending number one on Weibo when she won the belt and many of her other fights. And I think that Rose has missed the bigger picture and really just kind of focused in on, hey, I see that, this is a star for a country that is communist. And I remember what happened in regards to, the communist occupation from Lithuania, because I'm sure while she herself didn't live through it, my guess is based on her reaction, I'm assuming her parents or she has relatives and family that, really had all that going on. And if I believe correctly, during COVID, was it her grandmother passed away? I know one of her relatives passed away due to COVID, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's also compounded that type of thing, right? So I am not going to outright defend what she said. I do not believe that you are better dead than red or anything of that nature. And I don't think she understood the ramifications, especially with what's going on, with the hate towards Asian people. That's completely unacceptable. And I don't think she connected, 1 + 1 there. But I think that's really a big part of It's stupid and it's misguided, but I don't think it's malicious, and I don't think it's just drumming up, trying to get some like noise going and trying to cause a beef or anything of that nature. Because I do know with Lithuania and China, especially Lithuania, towards what happened during their Soviet occupation, there is still some bad blood there. It was only 30 years ago, and they again were one of the first countries that tried to become free, and they got the brunt of it, especially when all of that happened with the Bloody Sunday and everything of that nature. Maybe, not long before the Soviet Union kind of collapsed. So they kind of got dealt a bad hand there. But it's more complex than I think people realize. It's not just you're a communist, I hate, all communists, blah, blah, blah. At least from my perspective.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense as far as the history. And it gives, thank you for educating me on that. It adds a different layer to it. The problem I still see with this is that you're directing this to this individual who really had nothing to do with any of that. And really, whether she agrees to about anything in, her home country or whatever, we wouldn't know because, she's like not allowed to speak about certain things. That's a unfortunate reality. And let that be, I guess that could be enough of a commentary on this whole thing. But Jesus, yeah, it's just, like I said, I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole, man.
Man, this whole thing is just so nasty because you don't want to just lump somebody into a thing just because of where they're from. That's, you hear it all the time when Americans travel overseas to Europe or something. Like they always get the stereotypes. I mean, I've even gotten that just traveling to Jamaica, being from Texas. Like when I tell people I'm from Texas, like, oh, the looks I get. Like whenever I'm out of this, like even when I went to Canada a couple of times, like, oh yeah, you're from Texas, like all sorts of looks and things like that. Talking about it, you can imagine. But that's like saying if I were to be fighting a Chinese fighter, for example, and that Chinese fighter got on the media and said, you know what, I'm gonna fight this guy because I'm sick of reading all their news stories about school shootings and stuff. Like that has nothing to do with me as a person. Like it happens in the country I live in, but I don't participate in that sort of thing. It's really ridiculous, especially because considering one of the things that Ant talked about when it comes to what Weili has vocalized, it's because she can't. That's one of the criticism of the Chinese government that is very valid. Like, yeah, the freedoms of speech aren't as open as they are here in America, right? So she can't go out and criticize the Chinese government for what she may disagree with because she's going to have to deal with that when she's back home. So yeah, that part sucks. So we don't know if she agrees or disagrees with what's going on over there. I think her silence is something that we could, appreciate as like, hey, at least she's not outwardly approving of everything going on in China. Right? So I think that's one thing we should just be like, okay, look, she's not saying anything and it's like overly supportive of her government and their actions. But I also want to note that one thing people are conflating is that it's not the same sort of communism in China in 2021 that Rose is kind of referring to way back then in Lithuania, right? It's a different sort of thing. It's more capitalistic than anything. And that's a small distinction, or actually a big distinction that a lot of people don't recognize. Like China's not 100% communist anymore. There's a lot more capitalism going on, which creates a whole world of issues. And then if you want to say, well, communism's worse than capitalism, well, it's not exactly true either, because capitalism is pretty bad. Just look at America, for example. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because we could be here another 2 hours talking about this, but they're both bad. And it's just a dumb argument to bring up, a dumb point to bring up in an interview about a fight when you're not really fighting for anything, Rose. Like you're like it's been said before. Sure, it's great to have your sense of heritage of where your family has been and the experiences of your family. But at the end of the day, that has no relevance between you and Zhang Weili at this UFC event where you two are going to fight for a title. It's just not. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that at the end of the fight, no matter who wins, like they get on the mic and they have like that Rocky Four moment where it's like, if I can change and you can change, we all can change. That's all. If they have that, this has all been worth it. Thank you so much, please.
Yeah, I mean, again, sorry, I thought Drake was gonna hop in there, but he didn't. So, yeah, I mean, it's again, it's Rose missing the point. Rose is trying to make this a bigger fight than it is, and trying to make it, a fight against communism, and that's not, it's hard not to look at some things and get. I understand it. She's wrong, but you could argue to a sense, right, that Weili is being pushed, and you've got similarities to what, Razvan Kadyrov does, right, with his sports washing type thing. So I understand all that, but again, I think it was just not focused on the right thing, not really focusing on the fight itself, really just talking about her own personal issues. And I honestly think that Weili is a afterthought to Rose, which is how messed up this is. I think that this is literally her trying to make a statement against communism, not realizing that it's, she's inadvertently said that Weili Zhang represents all of communism and must be taken down. And I've got to win, because that's not at all what's happening. Right. Weili is just an athlete who's trying to do her thing. And it's, I will not defend the comments. I think they are stupid, but it's also just, I don't want to say unsurprising, but kind of, because how many, fighters, as you guys mentioned earlier, how many fighters do we know that say that type of stuff? So with that in mind, let us know your thoughts and comments on the situation. How do you feel about Rose's comments? Do some of you feel that she was in the right? Would love to hear some of those comments. If you feel she was wrong, let's hear those as well. Give us your breakdown, your thoughts on the whole situation. And yeah, this is one of those things where politics can't really, stay out of sports. So make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and bell notification if you liked it. And until then, hopefully we're not dealing with any more comments like these out of any fighters anytime soon.
And hopefully we don't have to hear Matt say anything unpatriotic again. Damn you.
Yeah, that too.